Haie. Seit 400 Millionen Jahren durchstreifen sie die Meere dieser Welt. Von den kalten Gewässern Grönlands bis zu den Tropen. Rund 530 Arten zählt man heute und entdeckt immer wieder neue. Haie gehören zu den Fischen, unterscheiden sich als Knorpelfische jedoch deutlich von den normalen Knochenfischen. Sie haben Knorpel statt Knochen, Hautzähnchen statt Schuppen, Kiemenschlitze statt einem Kiemendeckel und haben als einzige Fische eine innere Befruchtung. Für den Auftrieb sorgt statt einer Schwimmblase eine extrem ölhaltige Leber. Oder wie hier am Beispiel eines Sandtigerhais, geschluckte Luft. Perfekt an ihre Umgebung angepasst, sind sie mit ihren überlegenen Sinnen die Top-Räuber im Meer. Haie können sehr gut hören, sehr gut riechen, sehr gut sehen und verfügen über weitere, fast außersinnliche Fähigkeiten, wie zum Beispiel die Lorenzinischen Ampullen. Damit können sie elektrische Körperfelder von 5 Milliardstel Volt messen, wie sie zum Beispiel von den sandversteckten Beutefischen ausgestrahlt werden.
What an amazing animal, shark. So sensitive are these organs that sharks can detect electromagnetic currency as little as a 1/5 billionth of a volt. Just keep this in mind for a few minutes. It will be an important part of the story we are going to tell you today. But first of all, let me welcome you to this Shark Project webinar. I'm your host today here, live from Vienna, Austria. My name is Michael Mater, and together with my old friend, the famous shark expert and marine biologist from Stellenbosch University, Dr. Sara Andriotti, I'm glad to welcome you today. Sara, please.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's such an honor to be here tonight. Thank you for inviting.
Okay, thank you, Sara. The topic of today, of this evening, will be the SharkSafe Barrier. Now, if you have been a guest to our webinars this week, and if you know about the work of Shark Project, you know that one main pillar of our work is educating people about the important roles that sharks have in our marine environment. And the funny thing is, whenever you talk to people and they ask, what are you doing? And if you tell them that you are protecting sharks, you encounter funny reactions. It goes from, oh my God, aren't they dangerous animals, to some people who are sarcastic and say, oh, you couldn't find something more dangerous to care for. And when you talk to people then and try to be rational with them and tell them how important sharks are, they understand it. They understand it, but there's one thing that remains all the time. It's that deep-rooted irrational fear that people have from sharks. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. And the question is, are sharks really that dangerous as they are portrayed in media, in movies? And the answer is very simple, they are not. And this is not just hearsaying. There is no other animal whose encounter with humans is so thoroughly documented as it is with sharks. There are two big databases that register every encounter that ever have been between humans and sharks. It's the Global Shark Attack File, and it is the International Shark Attack File. And in both databases, as different as they are, if you take an average, about 8 people are killed a year by sharks. Now, this sounds maybe much for a first opponent, but considering how many billion times, and an American scientist calculated this, that about 4 to 5 billion times a year, human beings go into the sea. And compare this high number of humans going into the sea and how little unprovoked shark attacks there are. And so one could ask, well, where do these irrational fears come from? And I can only give you good advice. If you're interested in this topic, take a look at The Blind Dates. It's a superb book written by Gerhard Wegener and Dina Gstadner. And once you read it, you will understand where these irrational fears come from. But the fears are not the problem. It's the consequences that stem from them. It's the pressure of the public opinion, and that leads decision makers all over the world, be it a member of the tourism industry, local authorities, local governments, politicians that have to be elected, to do something. And this something to do is, unfortunately, there's one fatal consequence out of that. It's the slogan, "Shark must disappear." And this leads to culling. That means culling is a feminine expression for killing sharks, to shark nets and to drum lines. And what these shark nets and drum lines, the consequences have on the marine environment, nobody would know better as Dr. Andreotti. Sarah, please, what are the impact of that?
Yes, Michael, like you mentioned, sharks are extremely important for the environment. So the fact that due to the fear that people has for them, the government started deploying fishing gear to reduce their population is something that is unheard of if you compare sharks with other top predators. It will be the same as trying to kill all the lions that lives in the Kruger National Park, because people are afraid that a lion will bite a person. And at sea, we have exactly this problem. Shark net and drumline have been deployed in Australia since 1936. And then in South Africa, they started in 1950. And these shark nets are not really preventing sharks from reaching the beach. They're literally there to kill as many sharks as possible, because the more sharks are dead, the least encounter between sharks and people will occur. And the biggest issue with this is not just that sharks are so important for the ecosystem, but these fishing gear are also causing the demise of a lot of other marine creatures that have, nothing to do with the fear that people have for surfing or swimming in areas where sharks are. So these shark nets are also killing whales and turtles and dolphins. And a study in New South Wales showed that only 40% of the animal catch were actually sharks. And in that, an even smaller percentage were among the species that are considered responsible for the negative shark encounters. So it is important for people to understand, in my opinion, the reason why these shark nets are there. Another alternative to shark net that have been used are called the drum lines, which are practically bait hooks, very large commercial hooks that are there to kill specifically shark and try to kill a little less of the other animals. But once again, killing sharks is very damaging for the environment. So we should do something better than that by now.
Okay.
So I give it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Okay, thank you, Sarah.
So, but that is why, sorry, so that is why it's also so important, the Shark Project is supporting, trying to look into alternatives and innovation. So, and I believe you've been into that for many years by now, right?
Yep. Sarah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you well.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
I thought your microphone is stuck. No problem. Okay, thank you. That was I just remembered that you invited me to a board about 2 days ago. It was about shark culling in Australia, and it was really disheartening for me to hear what's going on there. And it is so important that we find an alternative. As long as people are so afraid from sharks that authorities believe they have to do something, we have to find a way to do away with drum lines and with shark nets. And that's the reason by SHARKPROJECT for a long time has been supporting any alternative that might be developed. And it started many years ago. It started many years ago with on the Bahamas, and I come back now to the sixth sense of sharks. Those in German it's called the Lorenzinischen Ampullen. It's the ampullae of Lorenzini, and it's very sensitive organs with. As they said in the trailer in the beginning, the sharks can detect up to a 5th billionth of a volt. And the same goes for magnetic fields. The tiny magnetic fields and interferences can be detected by sharks. And so it actually started about 2 decades ago. The people started to test equipment, electric current cables that keep electric currents into the water, and if that's a way to keep off sharks. But you know, electricity and water are two things that don't mix very good together. And first of all, it was very impractical as well, because you need it. It needs electric currency all the time to work. So there was one young American scientist, Dr. Gregor Collins, who started to test with magnets, because well, maybe you don't need electric currency. You could take one simple, some industrial style magnet, and if you put enough magnets in the water, maybe this could keep off sharks. And he worked on that in the famous shark lab of the late Dr. Samuel Gruber on the Bahamas. And well, to keep a long story short, it worked. If you put magnets of a certain strength and in a certain distance in the water, and he baited the shark. So he put something delicious smelling baits behind these magnets. Bull sharks and tiger sharks would not approach the bait. They would come nearer, they would come close, but then there was a certain moment when the magnetic field became so irritating to their organs that they just turned away. And about this time, on the other end of the world in South Africa, the famous shark diver Mike Rutsen made interesting observations. And every time he was in the water and he saw white sharks hunting for seals. And if the seals made it into kelp of a certain density, not a single plant, but if the kelp was of a certain density and the seals made it into the kelp, the white sharks wouldn't follow them. They just turned off and let the prey go. And that was a very, very interesting observation the South Africans made. And
yes.
Maybe Sarah can explain that better about kelp and sharks.
Yes, what Mike Rutsen been doing for many years was diving out of the cage with great white sharks and filming them to show that they're not the animals that people think they are by watching Hollywood movies. And one of the things he observed was that if he was filming with a thick forest of kelp behind his shoulders, the shark would not surprise him from the back. They would not enter the thick forest of kelp. And that is a knowledge that made him think about building some sort of barrier that would resemble kelp to replace shark nets and keep sharks away from people. And he had this concept, and then when Craig came to work with us on his magnet, we saw him working and we had that things written down, and we decided to merge the two ideas. But even before we did that, we thought of testing that theory scientifically and basically check if white sharks in South Africa would it really avoids thick forest of kelp or not. And I want to show you a video of this experiment where you can see how the Cape Fur seals in South Africa are utilizing the thick forest of kelp to avoid sharks' predation first. And then what we did was, is it starting? Is it working? Yeah, thank you. So what we did was taking GoPro underwater with baited, it's called a baited remote underwater video surveillance device, of BRAVs for short. So we have a little bucket with some fish in it and a camera, GoPro, to film what is going to come to that fish bucket. And we deploy 3 of these at the time, one outside the forest of kelp. And every time we did, we got a white shark coming and investigate what is this funny looking tube with fish inside. When we deploy, the one that we deploy in the mid kelp, so very loose kelp, where you have corridors where the shark can come in and out without getting entangled, only half of the time we deploy these BRAVs, we saw a white shark. And when we put these inside the thick forest of kelp, we never seen a great white shark entering it. So that gave us a fairly good idea that Mike's observation were true. If the forest of kelp is too thick, these animals that needs to swim at all time to oxygenate their gills will try to avoid entering it for fear potentially of getting trapped. So the concept of the SharkSafe Barrier that we then developed, we started to work on this, merging the magnet with the biomimicry of kelp in 2012, wanted to really replicate a thick forest of kelp. So
okay, thank you, Sarah. I think before we proceed with the presentation, there's an interesting question that came in. It's regarding the magnets from someone, Günther, and he asked, stören die Magnete nicht auch andere Fische? Don't the magnets disturb other fish as well, not only sharks? What would you say? Sarah, you're still with us? Well, I do hope. I forgot to mention that in the beginning, as you know, in South Africa they have considerable troubles right now with many things, and among them are constant, surprising power outages, and that was one thing that Sarah was worried about, that the electricity would be cut in the middle during our webinar, and she tried to do it to speak from the university, but she would have needed an exemption from the curfew, because they have a curfew in South Africa, and she has to be home by 9 p.m. and she couldn't make it between the university and her apartment in this time, and she wouldn't get an exemption for that. And for a white single woman, beating the curfew in South Africa is not a good idea. So she does it from home, and seemingly she lost electricity. Oh,
yes,
you're back, Sarah?
I'm back. Yes, it just went off for a second.
Yeah.
So there should be a video.
I was just telling the audience that I hope it's not another power outage in South Africa. No, there was an interesting question coming in from someone called Gunther. I read it in German first.
About the magnets.
Yeah, genau. Exactly.
Yes. So you didn't hear the answer. Okay, sorry, man.
No.
So it is very much shark specific. The magnet only works with sharks because, sharks, rays, and chimera are the 3 groups that have the ampullae of Lorenzini, while other fishes don't. So if you, I think I have a short video to share with you, if you start it, that shows how here you can see magnet next to some baits. And you see how the other fishes are nibbling on it, while this bull shark in the Bahamas can't get to the fish. It just gets deterred and pushed away by the presence of magnets. So using magnets to keep sharks away, it only works with sharks, which is making the technology very much just shark specific.
Okay, okay. I think we should stay with this one right now and not move back to. I had another slide before the movie, but we keep it. We stay here. I just wanted to tell you what happened next. So Craig was doing his studies on the magnets on the Bahamas, and of course he could test only on bull sharks and tiger sharks. There might be one another great white shark migrating by the Bahamas once in a while, but not enough bigger population to test this on it. So he had to go to South Africa, and in South Africa he met the people from Stellenbosch University. One of them is here with us today, Sarah, and also Professor Konrad Mate. He is the head of the institute, and then Mike Rudson, and they told him about their observation with the kelp, and they were already creating some idea of creating some artificial kelp to keep away, and well, the lucky thing was those two ideas were merged, and that was the first idea that when the SharkSafe Barrier idea of the SharkSafe Barrier came up. And what followed now was a long time of different tests. It was tested, the kelp was tested. How dense must the kelp be to keep away sharks? Magnets were tested, the pipes were tested, everything were tested, and all the results were published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. Well, Sarah, could you tell us something about the tests that were done?
Yes, of course. So the first test was just testing which magnet will work best to deter bull shark and great white. So the first test is very straightforward. We would have a little boy with just some fish attached to it, and another boy next to it with a fish as a magnet. And we would count how many times the shark will go and bite the fish attached to the magnet and the fish without the magnet. And most of the time, of course, would avoid the magnet one. Then we had to test what happened if we build a barrier. So just imagine like a fence, like a straight line. And then we would put some fish up current, so that the smell of this fish would go through the barrier down the current. And then we can see if the shark that comes up smelling the fish would decide to go straight and save some energy, or take the time to go all around the barrier to get to the fish. And nicely enough, they will avoid going through the pipes and going through the magnets, and they would take always the big circle around. And then
we have a picture prepared of the SharkSafe Barrier. Maybe we show that so that the audience can get a better idea of what the SharkSafe Barrier looks like.
Yes, that is how it looks like. Thank you. You see, we're trying to mimic a thick forest of kelp. So we have 3 rows. That is the latest design. You know, when we were testing, we had a little less pipes as well because we were on a budget. But now that we are like 6-7 years down the line, this is the final design of how the SharkSafe Barrier must look like, with 3 rows of pipes, so that we give the appearance of a thick forest of kelp, and then a 4th row facing the ocean and the shark, where we have alternated magnetic and non-magnetic pipes. So the magnetic pipes has 1 magnet per meter, and they're also staggered to form these strong magnetic field that the sharks can feel. And also thanks to the fact that the magnetic pipes move, all the pipes are moving, resembling kelp, will make the magnetic field coming from different directions at all times. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see how we did the 3rd part of the experiment, which is building a large square in the shark alley, again next to our friend, the sea lion, that we're playing with the real kelp. We built a large square, 15 meter by 15 meter, and we needed to anchor the pipe down very strongly because, you know, Gansbaai is close to it's called Cape of Storm, South Africa. So we have very, very strong current, very big waves. So we really needed the structure to stay in place. And we built this large 15 by 15 meter square and to exclude sharks from that area. And then we deploy fish in the middle of the square, and we to see if the shark would find a way to enter it or not. So what you see here is a great white that is trying his very best to get to the fish, but then every time he encounters the pipes and the magnet, he ends up turning around. We had 63 white sharks in the experiment from 2012 to 2015, and none of them crossed the SharkSafe barrier. So we're very, very, very happy with these experiments, both in the Bahamas and in South Africa, because it was like a breakthrough, having something that just keeps sharks out with this vertical pipe that don't entangle or kill animals and play on the natural fear that sharks have for kelp to, in some way, get people to be less afraid of sharks.
Well, thank you. There are two questions that I believe are relevant to what we just saw and what we were talking before. There's one, wie kann man sicherstellen, dass die SSB immer funktioniert? How can one be sure that the SSB SharkSafe Barrier is working all the time? And I think that maybe I can answer it first, and that's something I was mentioning before when I said the first tests around electromagnetic fields was done with electricity cables that actually electricity run through and put in the water. And with this construction, you need electric currency all the time. The electric currency has to flow through it. And but here it's static. It's an industrial style magnet that it works. It doesn't need anything. You don't have to oil it like or feed it or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a very, very, very large fridge magnet and a lot of them. No, it stays there. And being ceramic also doesn't rust. And the manufacturer are saying that it's going to last for many, many, many years. So we also reuse them in multiple installations. If the plastic, the HDPE, recyclable plastic of the pipe start being having wear and tear, we can recycle the plastic, but we can reuse the magnets.
Yeah,
and because it doesn't need electricity, is really, really good, especially for a country like South Africa, where we sometimes have power, electricity, and sometimes we don't.
There's one thing I realized when I was watching this movie now together with you, how different this first construction looks from how the SharkSafe Barrier looks now. Has it changed so much in the last years?
You have no idea. The sea has a way to break things. So we had to go through so many changes and to make it stronger, but without making extremely expensive. That it took about 6 years of development with the help of Laurie Barwell, an actual coastal engineer, and Lab Scheme Allchem is a local company that manufactures the pipes. And we kept on changing. We went from chain to fan belt, back to rope, and until we got the right design that is robust and survive the energy of the ocean, but it's easy to assemble and easy to maintain. So yeah, it took a while to get the right combination.
So what we saw in that movie actually was the very, very first installation you made at Dyer's Island.
That's right. Yes.
That's right. What's the current status of the whole project, Sarah?
Well, once I finished my PhD in 2015, Stellenbosch University asked me to bring these technology to the market. So it was a very, very steep learning curve for a marine biologist to learn how to do some business, because it's a completely different field. But I'm really pleased with the progress, because first of all, the team welcome other people that are business experts. Linton Berger works on ocean impact. We have Anthony Mederer, who is CEO and director of a large company that brings his expertise. And Marius Ungerer is a business strategist. and Laurie Barwell is a coastal engineer. So the team, first of all, became bigger with like-minded people that all brought their input to make this a success. And then we managed to export 200 of our units to the little island of La Réunion. La Réunion is a little French island that since 2011 had a huge issue with the sharks. So huge that they had to close beaches. And every time there is a shark accident, they'll have a loss of 40% in booking from the tourists. And they're losing like 20 million euro a year in tourism revenue because of the sharks. So they wanted to also test SharkSafe like we did. And they bought from us 200 of these units, most of them. It was a 60% on their side and 40% on our side, co-sponsored to build that experiment. Then we installed these
I think
at the beginning of 2019.
We have a little movie for that, don't we?
Yes, I was getting there, but you can start the movie.
Yes.
That is when we installed in, okay, you can start. That is when we installed in Reunion. And you see the anchorage system here is not permanent because after 2 years, we needed to take it out of the water, which we did this year. So we deployed some anchors that were easy to install and easy to remove. For a permanent installation, we will have something a lot heavier, a lot stronger than that. But it took 4 of us only 9 days to install these 200 pipes. And we created this large square that on the inside is 10 meters by 10 meters. So that the safety center of La Réunion could replicate the test we did in Bahamas and South Africa with their bull sharks. Or at least that was the idea. Then what actually happened in 2 years is that we were extremely happy that the structure stayed there. Nothing in the 2 years it was deployed, we didn't have breakages and it didn't need to be maintained either. And right at the opposite, it actually created an artificial reef with all the other animals getting to enjoy the growth on the anchorage and on the pipes. But in 2 years, so it was really nice to see how that shows very, very clearly how this structure just keeps sharks out while the other animals are sort of enjoying it. The only issue we had with Reunion is that despite they say that they had so many sharks, in 2 years they couldn't get a single shark to come to experiment. So we had to remove the experiment without data on the shark. And for us, it's not a big issue because we already had a peer-reviewed scientific article published on bull sharks. But for them, it was a pity because they really wanted to test it by the island. But you can see how the pipes were not cleaned in 2 years, and they're still looking quite good.
So besides being a barrier to keep away potentially dangerous sharks, this also creates a totally new environment in another way, partly deserted marine environment.
Yes, and it doesn't just keep the shark out without getting them killed or getting other animal killed. It also provides a new surface for bentonic organism to grow, which helps the local biomass. In Japan, they are deploying similar structure to improve their fishes and help fishery. So it is our hope that we won't just solve the issue of the shark-human conflict, we also do something really good for the environment while doing that.
So it's a dual use construction. Yes. Yeah.
Pretty much.
So there was one question that is was passiert, Andrea, was passiert, wenn ein Hai doch die SharkSafe Barrier durchschwimmt? So what happens if a shark does swim through the barrier? Now, first, let me answer it in a short way first. When I was talking about shark nets and drum lines at the very beginning, I forgot to mention a very important part. We were talking about how deadly they are, but we did not talk about how useless they are. When I first heard of shark nets before ever knowing any details, I thought that these are nets that closing a certain part of the beach completely, and no fish can come in, and everyone is safe. That's not the case. Shark nets are placed somewhere away from the shore in the current, hoping that sharks that might attack humans. We know they don't actually do that, but they might do it. They come and they get caught in these nets. This is like if you want to protect your house against burglars, you have all the windows are open and one window is closed and barred, and you hope that the intruder will try to get through this window. But that's not the point. What I was going to say is 40% of sharks that were caught in shark nets are caught on the inside of shark nets. That means that these sharks have before been already close to the shore, and they were just passing by, looking at people, and then swimming away again and getting caught in the net on the inside, away from the shore. So I don't know if a shark, I don't know what could motivate a shark to swim through a SharkSafe barrier. Maybe if the shark is harassed himself by a bigger predator, like I don't know, like an orca. An orca hunts a great white shark, and the great white shark tries to find refuges inside the SharkSafe barrier. But even if this happens, it doesn't mean that the shark causes any damage or threat to any living animals behind it.
And you see, we tested it with chum. We tested it trying to convince shark and motivate them to cross the barrier to reach a source of food. So the moment we installed this around a beach, without anything, without fish bleeding in the water on the inside, they have not even a reason to try and cross it. So the reasoning is, if they didn't cross it while they had a reason for do that, is even less unlikely they're gonna do it without chum. On the other hand, we also work in the marine environment, in the ocean, and nature is unpredictable. So what we need to do is, once we have a barrier installed, is to have, and we already wrote it down, a protocol to have a team that is trained to check that all the pipes are always up. After a storm, have a drone flying to check that nothing came in. So we will have safety protocols in place to double check that nothing, if we have maybe a very large storm with waves that comes very much over the pipes, you never know with the ocean. So what we do is having protocol in place to prevent, to double check that.
Is there, Sarah, thank you. Is there anything else you can tell us what to expect next with the SharkSafe barrier? When will I find the SharkSafe barrier? Somewhere here or next to me?
Well, we are working really hard on that. We had some investors that came and joined our team, and the Solar Impulse Foundation and the World Economic Forum that are both supporting this mission. So, and we had numerous requests from different clients from all over the world. So it is, I would say, a matter of time, and for us it's a matter of urgency, because we know how quickly sharks are dying out. And we are well aware that shark nets are not the top reason for shark demise, bycatch and overfishing. There are a lot of other shark threat and finning on the world. But this shark net is the one that we can really solve. So we feel the urgencies of at least solve this one as soon as possible. And on the other hand, especially by working in Reunion, I've been talking with people that got really traumatized by the presence of shark. And it is difficult to engage in conservation talks with them, because they're so afraid and so traumatized and so upset they cannot go swimming anymore. So the idea is that this SharkSafe barrier will be just a piece of a larger puzzle toward shark conservation. We put that in so people are not afraid of entering the water. They can surf, they can swim, they can enjoy the ocean. And then at the same time, we must start awareness and conservation in collaboration with our partners. I mean, we can't do everything on our own. So once we have that, it will be for Shark Project to come in and organize conservation talk and get more buzz around the importance of preserving sharks. So is a teamwork that must keep on being like that. So eventually we will start, promoting a more peaceful coexistence between sharks and humans.
Okay, there's one last question I want to share with you here. Brigitte asked, was kann man als umweltbewusster Mensch tun, um dieses Projekt zu unterstützen? How can people help with this project or mission?
Well, it is, the biggest help we could get at the moment is for people to simply know about SharkSafe, because it is a new technology and we are trying to sell it to municipality and governments that have been using something different for 8 years. So to get that to change and convince government to change is really, really challenging. They are very change adverse. So what we need is for a lot of people to know about SharkSafe and start asking their government for implementing different solutions and stop using shark nets. So we must create a sort of bottom-up movement. So even liking our SharkSafe Barrier Facebook and Instagram page, sharing in your network what we're doing, getting more people involved to just know about it. We are going to create such a buzz around it that the government will feel that that is a no-brainer to stop killing shark and trying something different. And to be completely honest with you, even if we get them to take the nets out and put nothing in the water, it will still be a win. But if they don't, then we have the alternative.
Okay, there's another question came in from Iris about the situation in Australia. Iris was with us during your stay in Australia. What's the current situation in Australia to stop culling? Did they ever come back on the proposal to install a SharkSafe barrier there?
Yes, so with Australia, there are a couple of things that happen. I participated to something called the Ocean Impact Ocean Impact Organization Pitch Fest, and SharkSafe was among the finalists. So the Ocean Impact Pitch Fest promoted SharkSafe at the same time as the Shark Cull, Envoy Cull movie came out, with Andre Borrell being the director. And then the Humane Society International is the same people that took the Queensland government to court for utilizing shark net in Queensland in the Great Barrier Reef. They're all pushing in the same direction. So we're now working together to bring SharkSafe to Australia. And just stay tuned. It's coming.
Okay.
We'll see. So it's moving. It's moving.
Okay, I mean, I tried everything that we could answer questions that arose during the webinar live, and but if you still have questions that we could not answer, or the best thing it would be if you just drop us a line, and then we would drop me a line or drop it to Sarah, and then we will send you a short email and give you all those links we were talking about, where to find the Global Shark Attack file, the SharkSafe Solutions web address, the web address of the SharkSafe Barrier, about the blind date book, and just drop us a line and you will hear from us pretty soon.
And if I may say, I just want to take the time to say, so thanks so much to Shark Project. They've been next to this project since the really very beginning. And the only reason why I'm talking with Australia is because in 2018, they sponsored us a trip to go there and survey the beach and speak with the Department of Primary Industry. And the reason why I'm getting some footage of the barrier is because they sponsored the camera. So being a long and fruitful collaboration that I wish will continue for many, many, many years to come.
I'm thankful that I can participate in this project in a minor way. I do, and I'm very grateful that you were with us today. And I just wanted to repeat one statement that's very important from me to everyone to understand. Shark Project does not support the idea of a barrier because we believe that sharks are so dangerous for humans that we have to protect humans from sharks. No, on the contrary, all we do is protect sharks from humans. But we do that as long as the general population insists of one or the other methods to keep sharks away from the beaches, from the places where people surf and so on. We have to use the most eco-friendly alternative possible, and that's right now is the SharkSafe Barrier. With that said, and if no more questions arise, I say thank you, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. Have a very nice evening in South Africa, and thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.